Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And on behalf of SAP, I would like to welcome you to today's virtual showcase. My name is Sandy Nijhuis, and I have the pleasure of being your moderator this afternoon. As you all know, COVID-19 came into our lives at the beginning of this year and changed it rapidly, not only personally, but also professionally. The way we do business today is totally different, and that change might be permanently. COVID-19 forced us to be flexible, to respond quickly to change, and to look at things from a new perspective. But it might also be an opportunity, a unique opportunity, to do things differently and to bring new change to the world, positive change that we can say. But how do we do that? How can you be resilient and profitable at the same time? And how will UK's best-run companies build winning circular economies? And how can you lead in sustainable change in a time like this with a lot of disruptive change going on? These and many other questions are the ones we're going to answer today with our team Business 2021, focusing on success with sustainability and innovation. We have a virtual showcase today, which means that not only you can see me, but I can see you as well. So I'd like to ask you, put on your camera so that I can see you and keep them switched on. It is a virtual showcase, so we're aiming to be as interactive as possible, and for that I obviously need your help. So please do join in on the conversations. With COVID-19 coming, countries went into lockdown, and from overnight we all went from working in the office, we went from working from home. And I'm kind of curious, what's that like now, 6 months in the process? So where are you guys at the moment? So please raise your hand if you're working from home today. Okay, a lot of people. Who's working from the office today? I'm going to call this my office for today. So only 3 or 4 people. Anybody working from another different place? Wave at me. Okay, so we're either in the office or we're at home. But not only you are in the office or at home, but your employees might do as well. So I'm curious to see where you're at that point, 6 months in. So most of your employees, are they working still from home, or are they still already back in the office? So raise your hand if you're saying yes, everybody's still working full-time from home. About half of you. Okay, I'm going to narrow it down. Yes, 3 to 4 days a week from home, so 1 or 2 days in the office. Yeah, a few hands. 1 or 2 days from home, but mostly in the office. 1 hand. Is there anybody who's full-time? Everybody's back in the office full-time? Nobody. So we're still mixing home and the office, which is good to see. One final question, because COVID-19 changed the way we work, and I'm wondering if it's changed your business model, your strategy as well. So if has it changed your business strategy? Please raise your hand if that is yes. Okay, 50%. The other ones is no? Still doing the same as before COVID? Okay, good. That's interesting, because we're going to talk about those things today. So thank you very much for sharing, and keep on doing that. Whenever you feel like you have a question or a comment, raise that virtual hand or type it in the chat box, and we'll put you up on the screen or ask you a question for you, because we have to build this virtual showcase together, and so we can learn from each other, our stories, our challenges, our experiences together. Since July 2020, he's the new managing director for the UK and Ireland, which is quite a challenging time to start, get to know your team when everybody's working from home. So how do you do that? How do you survive your almost first 100 days being in COVID-19, being in lockdown? So what is his viewpoint on those current affairs, on all the challenges that we're facing now, not only with COVID-19, but also with Brexit coming up for you guys, but also the anti-racism debates, the environmental issues. There's so much going on. And then you have to start as a new MD. And what does SAP do at this moment? How are they handling COVID-19? What are they doing for you, for their clients? And how does he look for the future? That's all these things that we're really curious to find out. So please give him a warm virtual welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, MD for UK and Ireland, Michiel Verhoeven.
Thank you very much, Sandy, and welcome to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I thank you in advance for engaging with us in an interactive forum. We really want to talk about how the COVID-19 crisis shaped and changed you, and how you adapt to the new ways of working. And secondly, how the ultimately important initiative on sustainability and your ESG goals come to the surface now with a renewed sense of urgency. Those are 2 themes that you'll hear us talk about with various panelists. When it comes to COVID-19, I think everybody has had similar challenges, right? So some industries are clearly in crisis mode. Others are in growth mode. You know which ones I'm talking about in the e-commerce space especially. But there's a lot of companies that are in our customer base that are currently in a delayed state of pain, I would call it. But all of the customers that we have engaged with, they say pretty much the same thing, which is we need to respond with a sense of responsibility to the medical industry. We need to respond with greater empathy. We need to adjust what we do, and we need to become more agile. And by the way, a digital infrastructure is a foundation for it, now more than ever. So SAP didn't see COVID coming either, right? Like all of you, we had to react very, very quickly. And I just want to share with you a couple of examples of how we responded internally and then with a view to the market. So the first thing that I did together with Maggie Buggy, who you'll meet later, in the services organization, we realized we have thousands of projects of customers who have planned to go live with new versions of software that impact our businesses. We must safeguard them. We can't leave you and them alone. And we need to make sure that if our people are going to be working from home, they have everything they need. The good news is, and I'm not exaggerating, we had more than 6,000 projects last year alone that we safeguarded remotely. So our 25,000 people were geared up for these remote delivery situations. That doesn't mean that everybody was perfectly attuned, but we readjusted. And that was one of the first areas of focus, externally oriented, related to our employees. The second was in our go-to-market. Clearly, there was a need for immediate responsiveness. So suppliers in the medical and pharma industry couldn't be reached, or they were short of stock. Now, how do you match supply from hospitals with buyers? And that's why we launched our Ariba Discovery services for free. It's why we extended education offerings, and we launched things like Qualtrics for employee or customer pulse scenarios. These are very important initiatives that we thought would be beneficial to our customer base and to rapidly respond. Of course, we have a social responsibility, and we wanted to help with hospital beds, with various devices and masks, you name it. We've seen lots of employee initiatives, but I think the most important one came from our collective work on the COVID tracing application in Germany. It wasn't just in Germany, and now that application is interoperable across the EU. Unfortunately, the UK has not embraced this yet. I've been trying to talk to government here, but there's other initiatives. But the reality is it sparked a huge sense of pride in our employees to work remotely, to do something beneficial, and to develop at speed new products. When it comes to working in the office, and I think Sandy alluded a little bit to it, right? So yes, I'm a new MD. We can talk about that a little bit later. But you know, our people are not really told you must be in the office every day of the week. We already had flex working policies in place. In the UK, that meant 2 days a week, not 5 days a week. It is now pretty much 5 days a week. But our culture is one of collaboration, teamwork, innovation, and ultimately delivering outcomes. We measure our goals, we have our KPIs, we have systems in place for that. So it's really the manager and employee's responsibility to figure out how do you get your outcomes no matter where you are. Now, that doesn't mean there's no productivity impact. We recognize all, I'm sure, that the energy in the room, the collaborative spirit, the ideation processes are different when you're together in a real world rather than in a virtual world. So we do see a need to return to the office for those moments. And here I'm currently in the SAP Feltham office next to Heathrow. Today we have 109 people in the office. Now we have capacity for 1,300, and most days I would say 700 to 800 people normally would show up. So we're far from good. But if you look at the growth rate of employees coming to the office, last week it was 20 to 40, it's more than doubled since the schools were opened and the government announced its desire to see people more back at work. So we're hoping to see a return of our workforce, of course. Now, how does this all play to the theme of sustainability? Well, my kids, I don't know about yours, but my kids certainly talk about the fact that it's great that there's less pollution, that the CO2 footprint is reducing, and that we travel a lot less. We travel significantly less, we use less oil, and why would we not take advantage of the current crisis to make that situation sustained? So SAP has had a commitment to sustainability and ESG goals for over a 10-year period. And we're really, really proud of that. Our CEO, Christian Klein, announced an initiative called Climate 21 earlier this year. What does it do? It helps companies develop, roll out solutions to track your CO2 footprint throughout your supply chain. This is innovation from us that came this year. It's been announced also at the World Economic Forum, and this is going to be core to our strategy. So on the question, did we change our strategy? I would say we adjusted it, but it's certainly top of mind among all our executives and employees. Second big thing is the smaller here and now. Did you know that in the UK alone, we spend 2.5 billion cups of plastic on coffee? So every year we throw away 2.5 billion cups. That's ridiculous, right? So SAP has a commitment through its global environmental policy that we will phase out single-use plastic by this year in all our offices globally. Secondly, carbon neutrality. As a company, we have a responsibility to be carbon neutral. Our goal is to be carbon neutral by 2025. You may say that's not exactly fast, but I believe that that's what's a realistic goal given where we are today and the consumption that we need to drive differently, and as well, how we go about our data centers and our customer support. It's not just for internal SAP usage. But collectively, right, and this is my appeal to you, we must recognize that the amount of waste, if 90% of the world's waste ends up in landfills, we must do something about the circular economy. And if you don't act now, how can you attract employees that care about this, of a younger generation, but also an older generation? While consumers are increasingly looking for brands that are trademarked with sustainability goals. I mean, BrewDog will be a fantastic example later. But also in government tenders, or if you're, depending on the industry that you work in, we see regulations increase to be compliant in this domain. And it's very, very important that we all recognize that the ability to respond to a crisis, such as COVID, requires agility. The ability to respond to sustainable goals requires agility. And fundamental to that is, of course, the digital transformation your company has to go on. So my question back to the audience would be, what decisions do you want to take, or are you taking today, that will help you genuinely transform, not just implement some IT solution? So a big thank you for being here today. Please do engage with us in dialogue here and later. And I offer it back to the host, Sandy, and our panelists subsequently. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michiel. Again, I'd like to stretch the invitation. Please join in on the conversation. Any questions, any comments, any remarks, they're more than welcome. We'd like to put you up on the screen or read your question. Thank you, Michiel. It's an elaborate story about what you're doing and your personal goals as well. I would like to start with you as a person first, because like I said in introduction, you're at the end roughly of your first 100 days. You started an important role, MD, Managing Director, in the midst of COVID-19, everybody working from home. How do you get to know your team?
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. I'm 60-something days in. And honestly, I just made my report of my 60 days in. And how do I meet my team? Honestly, that has been the biggest struggle. I'm a people person. I'm an action-oriented leader. I wake up with too much energy in the morning. So if I just sit in front of a screen to meet people, I cannot quite express myself. No. I can't feel the people and gauge what's really going on. No. So that's been really hard. There's no two ways around it. So how do I get to know my team? Of course, we've done all-hands communications. So we had, with my predecessor, Jens Amal, already, since COVID-19, a very frequent all-hands meeting with all employees. And that's a very well-attended forum. Mm-hmm. We have about 800 to 1,000 people attend in a Q&A format. And it's quite genuine, frankly. The questions are tough that are coming up, and it gives an ability to engage on real dialogue. Number two, of course, I do reach outs. I do these unplugged sessions with teams. So SAP is a huge matrix organization. And I started doing these unplugged sessions. So let me give you an example. You have, let's say, the marketing team, and the marketing team led by Maya Price. She has wonderful people in her team, let's say 28 people, 30 people. And they all appear on the screen, and everybody gave a quick overview of who they are, what they stand for, believe in, and aspire to be. Yeah. And that's just a simple way of getting started. But to be frank, I cannot wait for the day that we have people in a room. Yeah.
How do you feel? Is that moment near to us, or is this part of the new normal, working remote, working from home most of your time?
Look, we have more than 12 offices and 4,800 people or something in UK and Ireland combined. Yeah. A lot of people here live far away from any office. So not everybody lives in London. No. And frankly, they're very used to working from home well before the crisis. So I actually need to adjust my expectations more than they do. And so I think it is normal that people work remotely and that we have these virtual collaborations and smaller team meetings. Yeah. I think that is going to be the norm.
So unlike the CEO of Netflix, you see positives in working remote. Because he said, I believe it was Tuesday, I see nothing positive in people working from home. What's your standpoint on that?
Yeah, I saw that too, and I was quite struck by that, because to me, the feedback that I heard, particularly, so I lived and worked in Asia Pacific before coming here, where people work 24 hours if you're not careful. And here, people are a lot more disciplined about their days, their vacations, their childcare. 6 o'clock is the end of the day.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean everybody's like that, but I need to respect that. And I heard people say that they can manage their time better, their childcare better, they are building better relationships with their family, and frankly, they're still super productive. And I look at the outcomes, and I don't just mean revenues and profits. If I just look at quality of work being produced and engagement, it's extremely high in our company, despite the remote working.
It's good to hear. Because when we had our pre-talk before this today's session, one of your employees said, and I find it really warming, I guess it was. He said, well, my manager got to know my wife, my children, got to see where I live. So in some way, we connected deeper than I would have ever done if it wasn't for COVID-19. Do you recognize that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we all know the situation where somebody runs through the screen from the family and needs something. Yesterday, I did a team meeting, and I was supposed to present in my team meeting. And I moved into this new house, and the doorknob fell off. And I can't hide. It just happened. I better say it, right? It's really stupid, but it happened. And I took the phone from my room next door. Fortunately, I had the phone in my pocket, but I couldn't get back in my home office.
You were locked.
So yeah, we all have stupid moments like that, but it makes it a bit more fun and human, I would say.
I see people smiling and nodding, so this sounds really familiar to everyone. I think we've all dealt with it. Children running in the screen, spouses coming by, but it gives a further personal touch to your team and to your clients as well. So maybe it's a good thing that we have from COVID-19. When we talked as well, you said we want to change and listen better to our customers. Is that what you as MD are going to bring to the table?
So, okay, tough question, because it's real, right? And it's really easy to say we want to listen better. So let me start by not the company gospel, but just myself. Like I said before, I'm a high-energy, action-oriented person. My wife and 2 children, my 2 daughters, will definitely tell you that I'm impatient. That doesn't mean I'm not listening to them. I just want to get to the action, solve the problem, you name it, right? Mm-hmm. So I have a propensity, therefore, to not listen very well. And I am aware of that. So it starts with being aware, right? And then how do you deal with it? And then you have to try to do that as a group, to a group of customers who collectively have said, SAP, you need to listen to us a whole lot better, and not just overpromise. And I want to see outcomes from you. I want you to deliver on what we need, not just on what you envision, but on what we need.
Listening better, living up to your promise. So not talk the talk, but walk the walk as well. That's what you're going to stand for as the new MD, right?
Absolutely. And it's what I told my employees the first 30, 40 days. I literally only listened, and I caught myself thinking, gee, I want to jump to a solution, and I need to not do that, and it's very tempting to do that. Yeah. The pace of change that people can absorb is quite different depending on personality and circumstances, company culture. So if we engage with customers in that dialogue, it's not about SAP wanting something, it's about a customer needing something, and us in SAP understanding the pace that you can accommodate so that you are impactful, not our quarter that we need to make with a sale or something. That's completely not what should drive it. It should be the other way around. Yeah,
so it's about what your customers need and you helping them. In your speech, you earlier mentioned a few topics because SAP is quite high on purpose. I can imagine when you have a lot of ambitions and you want to contribute to climate change, you want to contribute to sustainability, but then COVID-19 hits. Isn't it a lot easier and for their understandable that companies like yourself say, well, let's sidetrack that for a moment and just deal with whatever we're currently facing because we were all struck by it. And then, I can imagine you can say, okay, we'll park that and then we'll get back to it whenever everything is back to normal. How do you look at that?
Let me give you a small story. Before COVID crisis hit, and I was working in Asia Pacific, I was standing in Korea in front of my employees there. And I asked them the question, can you tell me a customer story that makes you feel connected in your daily lives to the mission statement of SAP? For those of you who don't know what is our mission statement, it's to help the world run better, businesses run better, and help improve people's lives. And it was dead silent. I then told a story about New Zealand the New Zealand police and the firearms returns program that we helped collect semi-automatic guns back for. I can tell you the people in New Zealand that worked on that project worked 16, 18-hour days, no extra bonus, just pure out of commitment and their sense of purpose. This is SAP. When COVID-19 hit, it was very easy for many employees, the 100,000 that we have, to say, I can connect to the purpose very easily. Improving people's lives, it's needed now more than ever with hospital equipment, with COVID tracing app, you name it. So I was amazed. I was on a daily steering committee in the company where we looked at all the submissions from employees for COVID-19 solutions. We had more than 400 submissions, which we reviewed and narrowed down, and some of them really became product. So field glass, talent marketplace. So for example, how do I deal with the fact that many people are not the right skills in a hospital, or how do I source nurses, or how do I do that when I have no headcount? I cannot hire. So Fieldglass connected to the temp agencies instantly and helped people in the US solve that problem. This came out of employee initiatives, not out of management mandate. It was really bottom up. It was fantastic. Yeah. So the ability to connect to your purpose in those crisis situations, I think that made people very proud to be in SAP.
Good to hear that the crisis brings out the best of us. We do have a question now. Robert, welcome. You have a question for Michiel.
Yes, so hello. So I'm the digital officer for Legal in General. Going into COVID, we had, I suppose, 3 big events. The one was productivity went up as we all worked in a virtual world. We found that, and we've become better connected. Meetings have become democratized. The second one was all of our customers kind of slammed into our digital estate. So as a digital officer, that was a great result. However, some of our operations were a bit crunchy. And I'm thinking in particular, those that rely on paper, where we had to send out envelopes. And as a team, as a management team, senior leadership team, we had to work quite quickly through those challenges. I guess I'm interested in where your perhaps crunchy operational things were going into COVID and how you responded, and did it enhance the culture in any way?
Okay, good. Michiel, where were your challenges and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, and particularly operational ones, right? I heard the point about productivity, increased connection with each other, but how do you deal with the operational kings in the cable, or how do you work that out? So we are a cloud company. We have cloud operations, and sometimes there's issues with backup or recovery that affects lots of customers. And then, of course, it's a yelling and screaming. Who did this? Why didn't you prevent this? Did you reach out properly to the customer proactively before they actually found out themselves? And the answers are, oh, this is crisis. This is not how we should be doing it. So to the question, we have tangible examples of that where I think our cloud operations had to be tightened. We have already increased that capability on a number of product lines, but I think the importance of that was now more than ever. Other things were on the operations side. I'll give you an SAP example, which is remote delivery of projects. How do you monitor the status of the go lives that are coming up proactively? Do you do that through spreadsheet tracking if you don't have the system tools to do it? Not all of our customers use Solution Manager, unfortunately, in their project deployments. So how then do you get a hold of that? And that was a very manual process. We had to institute it in a more disciplined way, more centralized way, rather than only relying on decentralized teams to report that information out to the center. So lots of stories there I can tell you about. The other is, of course, on travel and expenses. So I give you an external example. The Royal Volunteer Services here in the UK, RVS, they have 600,000 volunteers, and they realized on their operations that T&E, you may not travel so much, but people are deployed in different locations. They do have expenses with their taxis. How do you quickly deal with that? So Concur solution, super easy. We rolled it out, and obviously we create a lot of goodwill by doing that.
Good, thank you very much. Does that answer your question, Robert?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, thank you very much for joining in. And if you have any other questions, please pop up again, yes? Thank you. Good, Michiel, back to you. You said your employees all came up with the ideas, the willingness to keep that sustainability change going, may even have increased by COVID-19. And you also mentioned the example now about taxi fees, etc. You're a big company. For you, it's obviously very easy to do these things. But for smaller companies, can you imagine that it's more difficult and that they do make the decision now to put it on a sidetrack and get back to it later? What advice could you give to them?
Yeah, so if I have to put myself in the shoes of a smaller company owner, I would ask myself first the question, what do I really need to get good at that I can sustain even though I have pressure on my bottom line, right? So if your revenues are leaking and you cannot somehow recover that, well, then you're in doomsday scenario. So revenue is everything in those scenarios. Yes, of course, employee care matters, but at the end of the day, we're running businesses. We need to find ways to get new to market. So there's companies like Brakes. So Brakes is a food delivery firm. They were not a business-to-consumer business, but they realized that they needed to go to consumer or they would die. Yeah. That is the revenues that they needed to generate. So our team worked with them for about 7 days, and all of a sudden they became that direct-to-consumer channel, right? So they stayed afloat.
What did you do as SAP to help this company in particular? You said because our team worked 7 days. Can you make it more tangible? What did you do?
Sure. I mean, it has everything to do with our platform, our commerce platform, our basic SAP infrastructure, right? So it's not, it's our CX solution, if you want, our Hypers Commerce previous scenario. We implemented and they basically could bypass their channel. That's a big strategic decision for a company CEO to say, I'm going to be disloyal to my channel partners, but I need to because I need to survive and I need a direct channel to market. We have seen a lot of people come to us with similar scenarios, not just small ones, also big ones. Yeah. So as company owner, I think that's one, the revenue side. Of course, the employee side matters. And the third one is, of course, on the supplier side. I think on the supplier side, what efficiencies, what working capital gains can you generate? There's a lot of people who look at that saying, look, we're not very efficient. We may have multiple companies, but we're not doing aggregate purchasing. Now is the time to do that. Or we are not accelerating the closure of our finances. That's not interesting in and of itself, but we could automate finance processes. And yes, we have employees and they're on furlough scheme, but frankly, we need to automate some of these reconciliation processes. So we see the adoption of RPA, robotics process automation, go through the roof. I mean, people are coming to us for that a lot now. I mean, to give you an idea, that growth rate is more than 70% on RPA alone. Yeah. So people are looking to automate processes faster than ever before.
So you can either do two things in crisis. You can do it out of necessity, because otherwise you're going to drown and you're going to not exist anymore. But did companies, in your opinion, also use it as sort of an accelerator to put in a change that they've always wanted to do, but now they had the perfect opportunity because they were forced by COVID-19?
Yes, I would think so, Sandy, but I also see people still, and maybe this is a larger company phenomenon, I don't know, still struggle with the reprioritization of capital expenditures, right? Mm-hmm. So your revenues are under pressure. Obviously, your contribution, your EBITDA is under pressure. But what are you going to do with your CapEx? Slash it, reallocate it. How do you decide that process, and what are your trade-offs in that? And to be very frank, I would love to have more conversations with people about that to see what is a genuine value proposition that will help you here and now, but also in the future. Rather than I just need to implement an SAP project to automate a few processes. Yeah. We really want to understand the genuine problem that is there.
And to look at the future and build sustainable solutions for you guys to continue and companies to continue for the coming years. Okay. Back to you as a person, because you've been a leader for many years. You know, you're new to this MD role at SAP, but what as a leader, what have you personally learned from COVID-19? Besides being more patient, because you already said that.
Yeah. So it's very true. You know, the listening in a virtual format is more needed. So I believe that not just awareness, also better skills on that. Second is I'm 53 years old. I've been traveling my entire life since I'm 18 for work, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, for pleasure. The last 6 months, I've not. I've been in Singapore and in London. I moved in the middle of COVID. What I learned from that was this is really good. This is good to reconnect, deeper relationships. And the other thing I underestimated is the power of people who already work from home, how predictive they are. And deep in my mind, I think I still had some prejudice towards people that never showed up in the office. And I think I've dropped that. I think I've got a lot more respect for them. And it is possible to be productive, impactful. Moreover, I'm amazed how many customer conversations I've had virtually, and people are very willing to have these conversations, not just one-on-one, also in group, and it's encouraging because, yeah, of course, it cuts travel and expenses, and I said it before, less travel is less carbon footprint. That's what we need to try to do anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know a lot of things, but crisis is always an opportunity. I mean, it sounds like a cliche. It is a cliche, but I'll tell you, for us, I really see that as an opportunity in a big way.
Good. We have a new question popping up. I'll read it to you. Some of SAP new competitors say that SAP software is not a cloud software, whereas theirs, the software is designed to be cloud software. And this is clearly shown by how the menus are driven.
Yeah, so we are becoming the best cloud company. We are not the best cloud company yet. We have a journey that we're going in. We have a big product portfolio, and you all know this. We have acquired companies that are pure cloud companies, by the way, that are growing very fast. Concur, SuccessFactors, Ariba, Qualtrics, you name it. But we've also evolved our existing product portfolio very well, I think, towards the public cloud capabilities with S4. So we do see opportunities, particularly in professional services, some retail manufacturing on public cloud deployments. And I can assure you, I saw a case study I spoke to the team, Mercedes-Benz E division, so the electric vehicle, the race that we do like, they went live within 12 weeks with standard public cloud deployment for their S4HANA. So this is pure cloud. That's where we want to be. Is that the majority of all our customers who are doing that? No, it's not. We have more than 40,000 customers on old on-premise solutions. So our opportunity is to take all of those into the cloud. Not just by porting people over to Azure or Amazon or Google Cloud Platform, but by also taking you on a private cloud journey with us. We think that there's a lot of potential there. I can keep on going on the sales pitch, and I'm sure many of our colleagues can do that better than I can. Yeah. But let's just say we recognize we're on a journey, and that is really important. And I think we have better and better deployments ahead of us than perhaps we had in the past.
So thank you for bringing it to your attention. And I think, Michiel, you're also extending the invitation to your clients to join in on your journey and to make it a better end result together, isn't it? We have another question. Andrew, thank you very much. Please ask your question to Michiel.
Yes, hello. Andrew Clint. I'm the Managing Director for the Authentication Division at De La Rue. And I'm very interested to hear that we've got quite a lot of shared experiences through the whole COVID crisis. But I wanted to explore a little bit more around how you continue to engage with your customers. I think you've spoken about, obviously, the need to listen to the customers and also the need to continue to grow revenues. In the business that I run, over 70% of our revenue comes from outside the UK, and 50% or so of that is from government clients. And historically, we've been a very face-to-face sales organization with a lot of travel around the world, a lot of sitting in large meeting rooms with the chairman or the chief exec of a particular government division, particularly in the tax authorities, which is where we mostly operate. And it's been quite challenging to continue to reach out to particularly new clients in that area for new client acquisitions. So I just wondered if you had any learnings you could share on what you have achieved.
Michiel, your learnings on acquainting new clients, acquisitioning new clients, sorry.
Yeah, engaging with existing ones and new ones, right?
Yeah,
so
both.
This is a very interesting question and very relevant. And I have that conversation with a couple of our customers here as well. And then they asked me, one of the banks here, they asked me, Michiel, I have 250 salespeople. How do I make them more productive in this environment? And it's underlying your question. And one of the things we discussed was, look, we have set up a team inside SAP called Net New Names. Now, Net New Names, you do not want to be called Net New Name as a customer, but it's a focus and mindset of this team that is a much younger generation. They have very good skills when it comes to phone and inside sales techniques, social selling, LinkedIn media, and it's a training program, right? It's not something you can just acquire to. You cannot just transfer every salesperson into that capabilities. It takes a lot of time. But I highly advise you to think about a dedicated, separately incented team on Net New Names for your customer acquisition. Younger, talented people, infuse a couple of real ones with content knowledge, and of course with the social selling behaviors. On the existing clients, how do you engage, right? So I'll give you an example of some clients I've talked to here in the UK already. So I do my introduction call saying, hey, I'm the new MD, and I just want to meet you and listen to you, blah, blah, blah. It's important. But that's not really a very long conversation, right? Not very relevant. So we do have to think about what is the agenda that people want to work with? What is it that my team already knows? And make sure that we present back some insights that are relevant. So depending on the industry that your customer is in, so if you're talking to tax authorities, I spoke to the head of, the CFO of HMRC here in the UK. I didn't walk in with a hello, I'm the new MD. I told him, here's what we're doing in Queensland government in Australia for revenue and tax optimization. You may not want to hear this, by the way. But we came up with some insights that could be relevant to them and a future state. And then after that, well, nice talking to you, Michiel, but now what are we going to do, right? So that succinct conversation has to lead to a set of actions and a follow-up and a cadence and a governance. And it does build a relationship. And then, of course, he tells me in the span of a few sentences that there's some important migration that's happening to Azure or somewhere else, doesn't matter, if I can please pay attention to it. So then, of course, I take that in my meeting notes, my action register, and we follow up with the team to make sure I then report back within 3-4 days max what we have done to address his short-term problem while we continue the engagement on the longer-term topic. This is classic engagement, I think, that's just disciplined engagement model. So my advice to you is if your sales force does not have those skills, we're happy to come and give you a session on how we do it. That doesn't mean it's great, but we do have some pretty good practices. The third tip I would say to you is, I don't know what your sales methodology is. We have one called Franchise for Success. And as a new MD walking in here, I ask people if they use it, if they are sticking to it. Why am I doing that? Because it creates a foundation for execution that we can rely on. Not because I don't trust people. I just want to make sure they have been enabled and they're capable of doing their job in the way we expect it. So it's like a common language that way across the organization. And you can tell customers, this is our process. Have you gone through these hoops or not? And where are we at and where are you at? So there's lots of tips and tricks there, and I'm happy to engage in another conversation with you for more specific details.
So let's get you guys acquainted later on in a one-to-one meeting. But to summarize what you just said, is for your new clients, get a dedicated team with mostly new young people who can get in touch with your new clients. For your existing clients, it's about being relevant. It's about making sure you follow up on what you say. And then the third was to keep in touch with your employees about the procedures that you're following to make it the common language. Was that sufficient for you, Andrew?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Okay, good. And you can meet up later because we're going to arrange that. I don't know how, but one way or another, we're going to arrange you guys meeting, and perhaps you can meet live again and help each other. Thank you very much. Good. We had a cliche earlier on, Michiel, but I would like to throw in one final cliche as well, because Winston Churchill once said, never waste a good crisis. I think we can safely say the pandemic has been a crisis. It's been a global crisis. What can we all do in order not to waste it, not to go back to before, not to go triple times as hard to get back to economy and be more polluted, or to be less sustainable, or to get less in touch with ourselves and our clients? What can we do to not waste this crisis, but to learn from it and grow?
Yeah, I think the number one thing here is to ask inside your company in a management meeting the real existential question. Are we actually committed? Or are we just talking about sustainability and ESG goals? Are we really, really committed? And if we are, what is the symbol, what's the behavior, and what's the system that we're going to put in place to demonstrate that? We at SAP have vouched for Climate 21. That's our solution that we want to take to market, and I hope that all of you will benefit from it, is to track and trace your CO2 carbon footprint throughout the supply chain. Now, of course, I'm selling you something here, but the reality is, for us, it's about product development commitment. We don't know if we're going to make a lot of money from it. We have no idea, but we think it's a responsible thing to do, because the outcome is motivated employees, it is impact on the environment, and yes, it helps improve people's lives and make businesses run better. So I ask you, what do you want to decide about sustainability that's not symbolic, but it's truly meaningful in your system and in your behaviors in the organization?
Yeah. So find something that fits you as a company and as a person,
yes.
Write a plan to it, and then stick to it, and then make sure you incorporate it in whatever you do. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Michiel, you'll be back later with us with the panel, because we have a lovely story that we'd like to share with you, because two men who obviously did not waste the good crisis were the guys from BrewDog. Because when COVID-19 hit and all the bars and restaurants and clubs and everything had to shut down, you can imagine that a brewery takes a really big hit because when there's no beer sold, there's no beer to be brewed. Over 80% of their revenue was lost. So what did they do? They had to make an entire big pivot, and they did. They did a rebranding, and they did it really, really good. How did they do it? Let's find out.
The science is clear. We're facing a climate crisis. Huge change is needed right now.
And that is why BrewDog is now carbon negative.
Every single year, we're going to pull twice as much carbon out of the air as we emit.
Our carbon, our problem.
So we're going to fix it ourselves right here.
We've bought this beautiful 2,000-acre chunk of Scottish Highlands to create the BrewDog Forest.
And we're going to plant 1 million trees to pull carbon out of the air. The site that we bought for our own forest extends 5 kilometres that way and almost 7 kilometres that way.
This all means that by drinking BrewDog beer, you're having a positive impact on the planet.
Together, let's make Earth great again.
Drink punk.
Kill carbon.
Let's talk about that. We have Sophie Moore joining us. Sophie, you're the Chief Marketing Officer from BrewDog. Very welcome. Great video. How on earth did you decide we are going to buy 2,000 acres and then we're going to build a forest?
BrewDog has always believed in business being a force for good. And we've also always believed in acting really quickly. And I think particularly when it comes to sustainability, we have to act super fast. So the process of purchasing a forest, I believe, took about 8 to 10 days,
wow.
Which is pretty incredible. But it came from that belief that we want to own the solution to the problem. So as well as instantly becoming carbon negative, we wanted to have a way of doing something tangible and doing something that would be a benchmark for other businesses to learn from as well.
Yeah. Was it, like Michiel said, a lot of great ideas came from within the employees, within the company. Was this also for your idea?
This came from across the business. I think the amazing thing about the initiatives that you just saw in the video, so becoming carbon negative, the BrewDog Forest, and also doing everything we can to reduce our emissions is something that every single one of our employees has reacted so positively to.
Yeah.
The reaction on social media has been overwhelming. And also we found that our customers, so the groceries, the supermarkets, the bars that we supply to have also responded really positively. Our biggest concern was that nobody would care or pay attention to the bold moves we were making. And actually, we've been overwhelmed by how much this has landed and how much people care about these issues.
Yeah, great. Maggie, I see you nodding enthusiastically. Your first response to this video?
Oh, absolutely love the video, but also the reason I'm nodding along to what Sophie is sharing is that one of the things really cool about how our solutions support this, that we've run a machine learning showcase that actually assures that BrewDog will be able to deliver on their negative carbon commitment, because we're able to now track through machine learning waste materials right from point of sale right through the end-to-end process and circular process.
Yeah, that's good. And Sophie, it actually helped you guys to turn things around during COVID as well, didn't it? The rebrand get you back on the menu, on the map again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that what this time when Michiel was talking about it earlier, what we've learned is that purpose is so important. It's so important for a business in terms of securing a future, but also we're seeing increasingly consumers and customers really care about what businesses are doing. So we found so much over the last few months that by actually doing good and doing things that align with the values of our consumers, it has a really super positive impact. So the announcements on our new sustainability initiatives have really helped reinforce what BrewDog stands for.
Yeah. Do you feel that clients nowadays are quite demanding? They want you to be responsible, to own up to your responsibility to be environmental friendly?
Yeah, absolutely. And will continue to be so. I think that consumers are making active purchase decisions based on how sustainable a business is, but most importantly, as Maggie sort of was alluded to, how honest and transparent you can be about that. So you can't greenwash. You have to be completely transparent. We offset our scope 1, 2, and 3 carbon emissions, and we want to go as far as to calling that out on our packaging and letting people know exactly what impact they're having by drinking our beer.
Yeah, okay. Maggie, you're very excited. I can see your eyes going big. It's nice to see because you're enthusiastic, because you're all about sustainability. We see you talk about it a lot. It's your playing field, isn't it? But what can you say, because you have a brilliant example from BrewDog, but what can you give an advice to all our viewers here today to say how can you make it tangible, and how can you not only talk the talk but walk the walk as well as a company?
Well, first, to really build on Sophie's point, and I can't emphasize this enough, because although I can't mention the names, we have had instances of customers globally who, in hindsight, would say they jumped into the kind of circular economy, sustainability, purpose space a little bit too early, without understanding that if you're going to market with a brand sentiment and a go-to-market message that is grounded in sustainability, circular economy, you have to understand that this is an advocate-rich space. It is a deeply authentic space, and if you're attempting to monetize your brand in its context, you have to walk the walk. As any of us know who've worked in the digital experience space, that it is one thing to deliver the marketing campaigns, but in parallel, you really have to retool the business across people, process, technology, to the point that Sophie made around people and culture and sentiment, to really gear the entire organization around it.
It has to become part of your DNA, right? That's basically what you're saying. Yeah.
And Sophie's point, be that on your cans, being completely transparent about exactly where you stand on this, be this around the messages that you're enforcing from a leadership perspective internally, and also, and this would be one of the other things I'd call out that we're seeing globally as we go through this crisis and emerge into hopefully a better world and learn how to continue to thrive together, is that this convergence of the pandemic, i.e. crisis in health, but also the environment and society, what it has accelerated is this assessment of the value that we contribute and the contribution that business makes across the triple bottom line in terms of both collectively and individually, what is our economic, our societal, and our environmental contribution. And it's also, I'd say it's driven nearly a rethinking of what the nature of value itself means. What we mean by that is that, and Michiel mentioned our C21 solution, we are forecasting in the future that CEOs globally will need to account for the triple bottom line in the context of their future shareholder value. And from a consumer perspective and also an ecosystem perspective, the expectation of the consumer and the ecosystem is that this is baked into not just the messaging of go-to-market and seen as an upside opportunity, but also is really opening the floodgates of a rethinking of how business is conducted. And there we see the real shift and the emergence, and I hope the rise of business models. And the last point I'd make on this, that we're seeing trend globally, is that it's really also causing a bit of a rethink of what the role of business is, number one, in the context of our communities. And so BrewDog we see as awesome example of the forest and the role that BrewDog plays in their community, but also rethinking of what are the attributes of leadership that are required in the world that we're evolving into. And they're already what customers, regardless of industry, regardless of country globally, the kind of things that they're saying to me are that they're thinking about the role that sentiment and emotional resilience is playing currently and is forecasted to grow in importance in terms of meeting the evolving expectation and needs, to be honest, of both employees and also the stakeholders within the value chain, both current value chains and emergent. So those are kind of three things that have been going through my mind as I've been listening to the discussion and the points presented by Sophie and Michiel, and the questions asked by Legal & General and Delivery.
Thank you very much for joining in the conversation and sharing it with us. Sophie, you, like I said earlier, you did a total pivot. You rebranded the company totally. Was it mainly out of necessity due to COVID-19, or was it something that you always wanted and this just was the acceleration, like I earlier discussed with Michiel?
The latter. So it's something that we've always wanted to do. I think that what the situation forced us to do was to realize the importance of acting really, really quickly and doing things that would have an immediate net positive impact. So we wanted to be able to pull this forward as much as possible. We wanted to show that business could be a force for good and could do things that would benefit the planet and consumers and sort of secure a future. But yeah, it definitely forced us to act quickly. And everything that we had sort of planned at the beginning of the year had gone out the window anyway. So we wanted to make sure that this became our major focus. And from my perspective, in terms of marketing, it's quite refreshing. It's quite amazing. As a business, we don't do marketing. We just do, good. We do the things that we're doing. The forest isn't a marketing gimmick. It's the huge bit of land that we purchased in Scotland that allows us to tell stories and allows us to educate consumers and hopefully other businesses about what they can be doing and what we're doing in terms of sustainability.
Yeah, because you said it took you like 8 to 10 days from the first idea to actually purchasing the land, and there you have it, the Brewdog Forest. I can imagine a lot of companies want to do something similar. They want to contribute, they want to show what they're standing for, but they have no idea where to start. So can you help them? Give them maybe some pointers what helped you to coming to this great idea actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been quite a few things. I think the thing we wanted to do is act quickly. And so we surrounded ourselves with the right sort of people that would be able to advise us. We've all been on a huge educational journey. This is something that we didn't know a lot about a year ago. And this is something that everybody's become consumed by because of the passion and because of the understanding of how important this is. And we've also spent a lot of time kind of figuring out how we can fast track things, which is pretty much Brewdog thing anyway, but making sure that at the same time as being carbon negative, we are also reducing our emissions in our brewery really drastically through things like anaerobic digesters, CO2 recovery, switching to electric vehicles, being wind powered. So we've looked at every single element of our business and figured out.
So it's more than just a new identity, a new packaging. It's the entire ethos of your company.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the most important thing we've ever done.
Is that also for you a term for success, to do it, to go big or go home, not just do a small part of it, but to integrate it in your entire DNA, such as Maggie said?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing is that if it's not the core focus, then it loses the importance internally. I think it's the most important thing we're doing as a business. And I also think the reason why we are making so much noise about it is because we want other people to feel moved to make similar changes. We think that hopefully we can be a catalyst for other people doing similar things within their businesses.
Yeah. I can imagine, Michiel, maybe you have a view on that this is a great example of doing something, but I can imagine whatever you're doing, you have to do something that fits your company, that fits your DNA. Just, rather than just doing something so that you can jump on the bandwagon, you really have to think and find something that suits you. Do you agree?
Yeah, and I think it plays to all the different departments, right? So let's take UK and Ireland. Our CFO here is very passionate about sustainability, and he's in charge of procurement. So he's looking at our real estate and facilities. How do we do better with our carbon footprint there? What kind of materials do we source? We have customers that are in the drinks industry that like not just alcoholic ones, also non-alcoholic ones, that would like to supply water to us through more sustainable, friendly methods rather than what we do today. It's very interesting. So you see different functions stepping up to the plate. That's my point. It's not just product development in our case or salespeople. It really comes from different functions. So I think you have to spark that. And I think Sophie said it well. It's not just the ethos. We're looking at the whole supply chain and all elements of it. So that's very important, so that all participants are in the journey.
Yeah, so it has to be something that fits your company. It has to be integrated in your DNA and has to be followed up throughout your entire company. So everything, every department has to jump on and make it a success. If you have any questions watching us from home or your office, please do join in, or any comments. We're happy to hear from you, pull you up on the screen, or I would happy to read your question out loud if you have one for us or for one of the panelists, of course. Maggie, back to you. In your opinion, we have COVID-19, business as we know it has changed. In your opinion, what does the playbook for now and the future look like, the world after COVID-19?
Reality check number one is that business globally is realizing that for too long we have traded off resiliency for short-term efficiency and short-term upticks in shareholder value that may only last a quarter or 2 quarters. And this pandemic has really accelerated entrance into a new stage of economic and societal thriving that we've realized is no longer going to be able to do that. So that would say number one. Number two is the obvious one we all know about. It was already happening, digital disruption, and now it's only going to be accelerated. And there's lots of things I could mention, but one that is very, I think, pertinent to the points that Sophie has been sharing and that Michiel also touched on, is that a growing understanding, and this is really to the heart of one of the premises about circular business models, in that the future business opportunities for us all are really around the ecosystem and the intersection of things. And what the pandemic has taught us in a very troubling sense from a human level, probably experienced over the last 9 months, is that how interconnected we all are. And moving forward from a point of view of the circular economy, but also the convergence of industries. And what do I mean by that? I mean that in many cases globally, we have some of our agribusiness, consumer products and retail customers coming to us, understanding to try and unpack and understand what is the shared business outcome that they could go after around traceability, for instance. So we forecast that a big part of the playbook moving forward will be around convergence of industries and shared outcomes and opportunities. And last point on that point of shared outcome, so Sophie mentioned obviously the forest that BrewDog have purchased, but also goes right to the heart of mutual goals across businesses. BrewDog, together with some of the other biggest brands in the world, are also busy working with us, SAP, in service to our mission of delivering clean oceans by 2030 as well. So those are three things I'd call out.
Yeah. So you see a lot of new corporations between companies rising due to COVID-19 and to jointly working to achieve those goals.
Yes, and finally, tough lessons learned that resilience matters more than short-term efficiency.
Yeah.
And obviously, I would say the circular economy needs to be front and central about how our customers actually go after that opportunity.
Yeah. Michiel, we're talking a lot now about sustainability. In your opinion, is that also the best way to stay resilient, to stay profitable in this new future? Or are there other areas of focus that we should address?
So before the COVID crisis last year already in the US, I think it was the corporate leaders board or corporate executive board, a number of Fortune 500 CEOs got together and realized that we need to do something much more sustainable rather than just generating shareholder value. So I think COVID has just made us more empathetic towards that. The need for climate action and change is visible around us every day at the moment. And I think it sparks a responsibility that we have to carry forward. So yeah, I do think that this is a moment to be decisive and take sustainability as part of your ethos, your purpose, and in all that you do. This is what we believe, at least, what I believe. Yeah. The second thing that has really surprised me that I didn't think would happen is the length of employment of people. Have you noticed that the furlough schemes have actually been very beneficial in Europe, and it's a huge dramatic difference with the US, where people have lost their jobs. And I think that has sparked a lot less unrest in this part of the world, in Western Europe at least, compared to North America. And I find that very contrasting and interesting. And as an employer, I feel pretty proud that our company had said, we are here for our people. And that is not government subsidized, by the way. That's purely from managing our business. And no, we are also challenged, right? No, we're not growing disproportionately because of this crisis. That's not happening. There are some companies do. That's not the case. You can read our financial reports. We are also fighting for being really great. But to make that commitment by our board up front, to me, was a moment of pride and a sense of belonging. And that is very important for people to commit to a deeper purpose and then live towards the larger goals of sustainability in the environment. And like I said, our mission of helping improve people's lives and helping businesses run better. So when I talk to them now about, look, I'm your new MD in the UK, and I have customers complain to me that we didn't do what we wanted to do. We promised a whole lot more than what they received, or we're not going fast enough, we're not agile enough. People take it a lot more seriously, I think, now than perhaps 1 year ago. They care. They care.
We have a sort of sense of tribe. We're all in this together, so let's come out across better. You said this is the time to decide. COVID-19 puts us in a state where we have to decide what to do and then actually do it. How do you feel your role as a leader? What's your responsibility within that process?
Towards the decision towards our mission and our purpose, I think it is pretty clear to me that not every employee speaks with the same voice or the same The words are not necessarily the actions, right? That is a big thing that I have to focus on, which is, of course, you have to be a role model yourself in what you do, but you need to have multipliers in the organization. So I'm looking for reaching 5,000 people in this geography, and I'm looking for the multipliers. I'm looking for those people that speak as passionately as Sophie and everybody at BrewDog, and Maggie, by the way, that really, really care. I want to know those people because they have multiplication effect on another 100 people each, and then I can reach 5,000, right?
Yeah.
So that's the role of the leader, I think, in making it happen, not just talking about it. The words alone are not good enough.
So you're following through personally, but you're also looking for ambassadors within the company, within your clientele, to carry out the message, and that's your role, to guard it and to keep pushing it so that everybody integrates it into their DNA.
Maybe one more thing, Sandy, which is partners. I just came off a call with one of our partners, and partners I mean in a systems integrator partner, an advisory firm, consulting firm, big one, and they made it very clear to me before the conversation we happened, saying we're looking to drive enterprise transformation with some industries that are heavy on the carbon footprint, and we know they need to change because oil prices are down. And we know that they have a compelling need to do something different with their assets, their people. And we're going to talk about that transformation, not just from a profit working capital perspective, but from a sustainability perspective. And I was delighted to hear that before we teed it up as saying, hey, we care about Climate 21, you see? Yeah. So I think the market is changing, and that's a very good sign.
Good. Sophie, you were nodding while Michiel was talking, so you recognize obviously a lot of things that he's saying. Your company is very environmental friendly. It's high on your agenda. Is that something that James and Martin are just oozing out all the time? Or how do they transfer their thoughts and their beliefs to you as their employees?
Well, first, yeah, they absolutely are. And I think in simple terms, the way they transferred it is just through pure passion. So it's something that they are so committed to, and something that, as I said earlier, they've had to do a lot of work to bring everybody in the business on the journey with them. Some people weren't very familiar with any of these sort of initiatives. Some people didn't know what being carbon negative meant or how a forest could sequester carbon. So there's a lot that has had to be done internally to get people involved and to get them understanding how important this is. And I think that just helps reinforce the business mission, and it helps reinforce what we stand for. And as I said, that's the benefit of that, is that we have seen our customers respond so positively because they are also looking at their businesses and thinking about what they can do. And they are also looking at their employees and the stakeholders that they're involved with externally and thinking about how they can have a positive impact. So that kind of working as a collective and having an ability to share learnings, and also with other organizations outside of our category, has helped everybody become really involved and engaged with this.
Okay, good, thank you. Not only you have the internal client, Maggie, you obviously have the external client as well. You have to get them on board as well. Any good advice for our people watching is how do you get your customers involved in your new journey towards sustainability and circular economies?
In Ireland, we say you just got to get stuck in. And that is really kind of what we apply in this space in terms of our customers. So I'm very present in an awful lot of our industry roundtables on the topics of this topic around sustainability, circular economy, innovation, but also to Michiel's point around within some of our customer industries, they are approaching major decision points, and they are reconsidering how they continue to fulfill their stewardship responsibilities for their business in the context of a much changed world. So very much getting stuck in, really listening. And I don't want to talk too much about what we're doing within the part of the business I'm responsible for, but there was a question I think asked earlier around the operational piece by the gentleman from Deliveroo. And one of the lessons that we've learned over the last year with trying to work in this way with our customers and really trying to scale out the way in which we deliver for our customers and with our ecosystem these type of purpose, sustainability type outcomes, is that you have to completely restructure your people, process and technology systems to be able to support it. What do I mean by that? Well, you need to have a portfolio that is completely modular. You need to have a minimum requirement of automation and insight to be able to scale and scrape that insight off all of your deployments, off all of your systems, to be able to provide that in an actionable package for our customers and for our ecosystem. So that's one of the big things that we're seeing globally, and that's how we're doing it. We're getting stuck in, we're listening, and we're driving significant change internally.
Good. Get stuck in, ladies and gentlemen. That's the piece of advice from Maggie. Sophie, could you please give us a bit of a perspective for the future? You have BrewDog Forest. What's next?
Well, one of the things we announced this week was that all of our equity punks, our shareholders, we have 148,000 across the world, are going to be able to have their own tree in the forest. So they will be able to get the exact location. We're working with what 3 words, and they will be able to check in on the progress of their tree. So that was just another way of trying to bring to life, I guess, what we're doing and make sure that our community could be really involved in it. Yeah. We then have a series of initiatives over the next 2 years, which is just, as Maggie sort of mentioned, looking at every single element of our business, every single touch point, everything that we do, and thinking about what needs to be done to improve it and what needs to be done to make sure that we are doing it in the most positive way. This, for us, isn't a campaign. It's not a sort of short-term thing. This is what our business is focused on. And it's sort of the guiding path, really, for the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Good luck on all the excitement things that you're doing and on planting all those trees and hugging them to make sure they grow and that we reduce our carbon footprint. Thank you very much for being here, Maggie, you as well. Michiel, you're staying with us for a little bit, but thank you girls for now, and good luck on the future. Thank you. Back to the answer, guys. Go ahead and buy your beers and support your carbon neutral footprint. And then let's see if we can help BrewDog change the future and diminish the carbon footprint. And obviously, hopefully you have been inspired as well in order to create new opportunities to integrate sustainability and circular economy within your company and to contribute and to make COVID-19 a sort of opportunity to do better. Michiel, are you here with me?
I'm with you still.
Yes, you
Absolutely.
are. Good. Wow, that was an interesting, good hour. What's your first response looking back?
I love it when companies have a purpose that relates to making the world run better. Not just because we have it, but BrewDog really clicks with us for that culture they have.
Yeah, good. Anything that stuck with you from this conversation that we've had with our audience, with our guests, that you'd like to share or that stuck with you?
Well, one thing that stuck to me was that when it comes to sustainable supply chains, that there are companies who are leading, who may not be Fortune 500 today, but in the future are going to be very important. BrewDog is just one example of that. I'm sure they will grow fast. I'm sure they will do well, and they're exemplary in how they engage an audience as customers and shareholders and people that care about what their success will be like, and not just have a one-time beer. So just think about the lifetime value that you're creating as a company like that. So for all of you on the audience, I hope that's how you start thinking as well. We in SAP, we're fortunate to be 47 years in business. We realize that we have customers who've been with us for 20, 30 years, and we need to do a whole lot better job to make sure that they don't want to just leave us, but stay with us for the next 20, 30 years. And not because you're locked in, but because you want to be there, because we care about your purpose, your success, your outcomes, right? So we've got a lot of work to do, and that made me realize that even more. And finally, I think on the COVID crisis itself and the new ways of working, we have shared challenges, and I liked some of the questions that I had earlier. How do you make sure your sales force is productive and wins net new business? That is an important question. We're happy to engage on those topics and any other topic you have in mind. The operational aspects absolutely are paramount, and that automation, that seamless process of understanding end-to-end what flows through those processes, what are the bottlenecks, is critical, right? And we hope to be your partner on that, obviously. But we also recognize that we're not sufficient. We need to do that together with our ecosystem of partners with you.
Good. Michiel, you've reached a hand to all the audience. You set the invitation to come join you on the journey to a better future. What does the future for you look like? We had this virtual showcase. You're going to listen. You're going to help them. Where do we go from after today?
So the very near term, back to the question, how do we follow up? If you want to follow up with us, we'll gladly invite you for a conversation with me, with any of the panelists, or with other experts on any topic, particularly passionate, of course, about the ones we presented today, new ways of working, and how we can help you automate, but also how do we engage together on sustainability scenarios. That's the short-term answer. We can do that systematically. What does the future really look like? For us in SAP, we're pretty passionate about becoming industry cloud leaders. We are present in 25 industries in the classic world of ERP. with business process automation as our core capability. That is clearly changing, and we're taking all 25 industries to the cloud at rapid speed. Perhaps not at the speed that all of you need equally, but we are going there, and it's really happening. So I feel very good about that outlook, that commitment from our ecosystem of partners that are very bullish, by the way. All the ones I spoke to are all seeing a fantastic outlook. That is something to keep in mind, which means we have to train and educate a large number of people in the market on our solutions to support you, our clients, not just today, but also in the future. The other thing that I think really comes to mind is that people will more and more want to do less with their IT in their organizations. So you know the old saga of the outsourcing days? Well, that today is a reality with hyperscalers and infrastructure, but that's going to happen with applications as well. And we believe we're an integral part of that. So I think that will simplify the environment for companies, but also increases dependency on each other to truly provide visibility, transparency, accountability throughout your supply chain, throughout your business processes, between you as a customer and us as a supplier, if you want, or a partner. So I see quite a bright future for SAP. I see quite a good momentum today that sustainability matters and is here to stay. And if you don't believe it, listen to the protesters that will come up on Lambeth Bridge this weekend. They are there for a reason. We have a lot more to do on awareness creation together. But I think we should not just think about awareness and really take action now in your capability, in your capacity as a leader, in your company that is core to what you do.
Thank you.
So thank you for that, and appreciate you facilitating the session today as well.
Thank you very much for joining us, Michiel. Thank you for sharing your point of view. You've set out a beautiful future, and I'm pretty sure you're going to help your clients very good. Don't forget to call Andrew, because I told him you get in touch because he has a question for you. So please follow up on that for me. I think that's a wrap for today. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in, for asking your questions. We wish you all the best for the future. Let's make COVID-19 not a crisis wasted, but a wonderful opportunity to be innovative with sustainability. And let's make sure that we make the world a better place. Thank you very much. Good luck on your challenges. And let's make 2021 very successful.